Hey guys, how's it going? Let's talk about WWE Most Wanted Treasures Season 1. I have spoke in a short about, I think it was the Booker T episode, and there have been other things that I've spoken about the Most Wanted Treasures. But I thought that I would give you a overall look at the series of Most Wanted Treasures. Is this worth watching? I would say it's definitely worth watching, but you have to hear some of my thoughts and opinions before we get into this. Of course, this is not a review, although there will be some spoilers in this. I can guarantee that. This is a British fan's retrospective thoughts and opinions on this series. Very, very entertaining. Some of the episodes weren't as good as the other episodes, and some of the episodes were clearly filmed in a manner of, we already know where these items are, go and get them, but we're going to play it like we don't know where these items are. Some of the episodes, they had no idea where some of the items were, mainly the WCW Television Championship. And once again, I am calling in this video to anyone who would know anything about the WCW World Television Championship belt, should I say, because this was the World Television Championship version of the WCW Television Championship belt. You need to understand that you need to return this belt. If you know who owns this belt, or who has possession of this original belt, please let the WWE know, or even let me know, and I'll let the WWE know, and they can go from there. I would like to see the return of that belt. That's the main thing that I have taken from this series, and it's one of the reasons why it's kept me coming back to this series week after week. There have been some episodes that I've missed, like the Jake the Snake episode. Reason being is because this was aired in the same week of the Dark Side of the Ring, Grizzly Adams, or Grizzly Smith, I keep calling him Grizzly Adams, Grizzly Smith, in the Shadow of Grizzly Smith episode, and that was quite a dark episode of Dark Side of the Ring. So I wasn't really feeling watching a episode based on looking for some of Jake the Snake's treasures, etc. But I will catch up with that episode going forward. In fact, I may even watch that episode tonight. I have seen the majority of the series, though, except the most recent episode with Andre the Giant, or Andre the Giant, as some people would say, because we do say things differently. And I will, like I say, watch the majority of the episodes that will come later in time. But I just thought that I would bring this to you guys and let you know that this series is out there, and it's definitely something that you should be watching if you're a fan of professional wrestling, especially if you're a fan of classic professional wrestling, from the 80s and the 90s. Most of the characters that are in this are characters that were stars in the 80s and 90s, and they are in search of some of their memorabilia, because of course WWE is building a actual Hall of Fame building that you can go and see. And they've done various things like the Booker T robe and the Junkyard Dog chain, dog collar chain. Very, 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 very sought after items. The recent episode that I watched, the Greg the Hammer Valentine and Brutus the Barber Beefcake, because they've squashed these two guys into the same episode, which is quite good. I was really intrigued to hear that they were an actual tag team in the past. I had no idea that Brutus Beefcake and Greg the Hammer Valentine were a tag team called the Dream Team in the 80s. That was something that really opened my eyes. Maybe WWE should focus on maybe doing a biography about Greg the Hammer Valentine. Because as far as I'm aware, I just remember Greg being, a slightly over the hill, overweight wrestler in the late 90s who had a bit of a name, but didn't really live up to any of the rigmarole and hype that the commentators would talk about. Like when you seen him in late 96 and 97 in WCW, I think it was, he didn't look like he had been a star before, but you wouldn't know this because they didn't tell you this on commentary. But Greg the Hammer Valentine was a very, 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 very highly rated professional wrestler at the time, and so was Brutus Beefcake. But yeah, as regards to this whole series and exactly what the Most Wanted Treasures thing is, it's an insight and a look into how some of these guys have handled their lives over the years, because they do live in good houses and they do live in good places, but you can tell that something has got to have been up with these wrestlers for them to have sold some of these items. Maybe they didn't see the value in some of these items years ago, and now obviously they see the value in these items. But there are some confusing valuations as well. You know, somebody would have bought an item maybe 20 years ago and they believe that it's worth, let's just say for an estimation and for, you know, example's sake, let's say they think it's worth $15,000. WWE might not think that it's worth that, but they know that they want the item, so it's worth really whatever the person who's going to sell it is saying it's worth. Like AJ Francis, the person who is now top dollar on NXT, he is the person who presents this show, and he's the main character of this show, and he meets up with various WWE legends and they go around and they search around for certain items. Now, of course, he already has a valuation in his head of what these items are worth, and he just throws it out there. And some of the wrestlers, you can clearly see that they've already made a deal previously, but some of the wrestlers or the actual collectors, they're quite shocked and taken back. But it's obvious, with a little bit of persuasion, maybe going for dinner or having a coffee or having a beer with one of the wrestlers, because this has featured multiple legends like Stone Cold Steve Austin, Booker T, The Big Show, Mark Henry, who are of course now in AEW, which was quite strange to see them as part of this WWE programming. But nonetheless, I would say that there are some absolute gems of items in this. Once again, I refer you to the WCW World Television Championship. If you know anything about it, then please let the WWE know that you know something about it. But apart from that, they do get some great items, and they do show us that these wrestlers still mean something to the WWE in 2021. And they, of course, still mean something to the fan base in 2021. I mean, at this point, there's not really much for me left to say. I've waffled on enough about this, but I do highly recommend, if you're a wrestling fan, at least catching some of these episodes. But that is all I'm going to say for now, guys. Please like, share, subscribe, and of course, stay tuned for more.